An octagonal wall of stone ends in open air, roughly 180 feet above the church floor. Rain falls through the gap and lands on the paving. Across the opening, some 140 feet side to side, there is nothing. In an aisle below stands a model, built of brick and mortar, of the roof this city has sworn to raise. No one has yet explained how to do it. Welcome to Same Day, Different Century. I'm Zach. Today is August 7th. Florence began its cathedral in 1296, to a design by Arnolfo di Cambio. In the middle of the next century, the master Francesco Talenti enlarged it. The building grew wider, longer, and more ambitious than anything the city had attempted, and the work was paid for and supervised by the Wool Merchants Guild, through a board of works called the Opera del Duomo. In 1367, a commission of masters and painters settled the shape of the crossing. They built a model in brick and mortar, it was approved, and it became binding. The model fixed an octagon, a pointed profile rather than a hemisphere, springing from a tall drum. By 1413, the drum was finished, the octagonal ring with its round windows, closed off at the top by nothing at all, and there the work stopped. The obstacle was not money and not will. It was centering. A masonry vault is built over a wooden form that carries the stone until the mortar cures and the ring closes on itself. For an opening this wide, beginning that high, the form alone would likely have been one of the largest timber structures in Europe. It would have to rise from the floor below or cantilever from the drum, and it would consume timber on a scale the opera had good reason to doubt it could buy or support. There was also the thrust. A dome pushes outward at its base. Without buttresses, whatever contained that push had to be inside the dome itself. The unfinished crossing had become a public problem. In August 1418, the opera announced a competition, with 200 gold florins for a model showing how the vault might be turned. Among those who came forward was Filippo Brunelleschi, trained as a goldsmith, then in his early 40s. Best known for having lost the competition for the Baptistery doors in 1401 to Lorenzo Ghiberti. From February 1419, while the models were still being weighed, the papal court of Martin V took up residence in the city, giving Florentines a distinguished audience for their hole in the roof. On April 16, 1420, the opera appointed 3 men to run the work: Brunelleschi, Ghiberti, and Battista d'Antonio, the board's own master mason. Brunelleschi and Ghiberti were each paid 3 florins a month. 2 stories cling to this moment and both should be set aside. The first is the egg. Brunelleschi silencing his rivals by cracking an egg's base to stand it upright. It comes from Giorgio Vasari, writing more than a century later, and no contemporary record supports it. The second is the idea that Brunelleschi kept the design in his head and built without plans. He did not. In 1420, he set down a written specification for the opera, roughly a dozen provisions, and it survives. Work began on August 7, 1420. The building accounts mark it in the ordinary language of expenditure, with provisions for the men: bread, melon, and wine. What the specification described had no precedent at this scale. The dome would have 2 shells, not 1. The inner shell would carry the load, some 7 feet of masonry at its base, thinning as it rose. The outer shell would be lighter, its purpose to shed water, and in the document's own reasoning, to make the dome look grander and fuller from the street. Between them, 24 ribs, 8 at the corners of the octagon, 16 more between them, tied by horizontal arches. Around them, rings of sandstone beams clamped with iron, laid at intervals like hoops on a barrel, plus 1 ring built of chestnut timbers. The lowest stretch would be solid stone, everything above it brick, and the vault was to be turned, in the document's phrase, without any armature. The physics that made this possible sit in the shape. A pointed profile leans inward more steeply than a hemisphere, which reduces the outward push and the tension that tries to split a dome along its meridians. More importantly, each completed horizontal ring is a closed loop. Once a course is laid all the way around the octagon, It cannot fall inward or outward. It holds itself in compression. The dome was therefore built as a stack of self-supporting rings, each one narrower than the last, each one a temporary foundation for the next. No form was needed underneath because the finished work was the form. That only holds if the fresh bricks stay put while the mortar sets. As the walls steepened, gravity worked to slide them off. The answer was a pattern the masons called spina pesce, a herringbone pattern. At intervals, bricks were set on end, vertically, cutting across the horizontal courses in a spiral that keyed each ring into the ones below. The technique was not invented in Florence. Versions of it appear in Roman and late antique construction, and Brunelleschi had access to ruins. His achievement was integration at scale, shape, ribs, chains, and bond working as one system. The specification also shows how provisional the scheme still was. It commits to building without centering up to a height of 30 braccia, a little under 60 feet above the springing. Above that, it says, the work would proceed as the masters then in charge judged best. Almost everything else followed from the ban on centering. The alternatives were closed. A full timber form was the conventional path and had been rejected as impractical. Redesigning the dome lower, or bracing it with buttresses, would have broken the sworn model and wasted a finished drum. What remained was a logistics problem, lifting tens of thousands of tons of stone and brick nearly 200 feet continuously for years. Brunelleschi's answer arrived the following year, a hoist driven by oxen, with a reversing mechanism that let loads be raised and lowered without unhitching the animals. Two questions from these years remain open. The first is Ghiberti. He drew the same wage, and what he did for it has been argued about for centuries. The earliest life of Brunelleschi, written by an admirer decades after both men were dead, presents Ghiberti as an incompetent exposed. Scholars working from the opera's own records have generally granted him a larger role, at least early on. The second question is method, exactly how the masons kept the curve true without a form beneath them. Chords from a fixed point, templates on the ribs, or guide arcs. The proposals are all plausible and the documents do not settle it. The cathedral was consecrated on the 25th of March, 1436, and the dome's masonry closed that year. Leon Battista Alberti, dedicating his treatise on painting to Brunelleschi, described a structure rising above the skies, broad enough to throw its shadow over all the people of Tuscany. Brunelleschi won the competition for the lantern that crowns it. Its first stone was laid in 1446, and he died on the 15th of April that year. The lantern was completed in 1461. Roughly 4 million bricks went into it. It is still the largest brick dome ever built. Its record for a dome of masonry of any kind stood until 2006, when a stone dome twice its span was closed on a hilltop outside Mumbai. The dome has been cracking for at least 400 years, likely sooner. Some say the cracking began before construction even finished. Gauges were fitted to the fissures in the late 17th century. They broke. The instruments got better and the watching never stopped. And a monitoring network reads those same cracks still, measuring, year by year, a structure begun on a day when the method for finishing it had not yet been decided. That same day, different century. I'm Zach. We'll be back Monday with another date, another story. Thanks for listening.